Welcome to the Numinous Factor, the home of spiritual and metaphysical exploration through the guiding lights of Ronnie Mae James, medium, and Claudia Ruland, astrologer. Debate and discussion, observation and openness, stimulation and sensitivity to all matters pertaining to our soul. The Numinous Factor.
Welcome everyone to the 4th episode of the Numinous Factor. I hope everyone's had a good couple of weeks. We've got some very interesting topics today and we have a special guest. Our first segment today, Spirits Talking with Spirits. Ronnie, Brody, and myself will discuss consciousness and the power of the mind with our special guest, the creator of our intro music, the brilliant world-renowned New Age composer, actor, director, painter, and writer, Mr. Russell Walder. He'll be coming up shortly. Hello, Brody. How are you?
Oh, dear. Well, the first thing you could do is switch yourself on. I'm miles away. How are we, ladies? Are we well?
Yes,
good.
lovely, chubbly.
Now,
How are
listen,
you, Ronnie?
for your first two shows, you've been getting some astounding results.
Yes, I've heard.
Oh, how exciting.
Yes.
It's very exciting
Yes.
indeed. And
Yeah.
I just hope that everyone out there is sharing the Numinous Factor with your friends. What places have you put it on?
We're on Spotify and we are on YouTube primarily, also on SoundCloud and Spreaker. And we've actually been receiving emails and being approached by people from several countries around the world, which is very interesting.
Have we really?
Yeah.
Do we have any questions?
We do. We've got a few questions coming up from... We've got one that's coming from Spain, and I think we've got one coming up in a future episode from the UK, so it's all getting very exciting.
Well, you would know that you're going to get one in the future from the UK.
Well done, Claudia. You're more tuned in than I am.
Well, that's terrific. Now, we've got an interesting exercise today because we're going to be ringing internationally.
We are.
And we've got a guest that you've invited, which I do have to say, before we get involved with this, going back to the beginning of the show, the searching for the right music, and you two desperately wanted a piece of music, and I said to you, good luck with that. Because it's very hard to get music to be approved for things like podcasts and so on. But you managed to get it, which is an extraordinary feat and equally very generous.
Very. I was pleasantly surprised. I obviously didn't realise that Russell Walder was going to accept our invitation to come on the show, as well as allow us to play, 45 seconds of his beautiful music. So we are very lucky and very grateful too.
Yes.
Well, my feeling is that we should get him on the Dog and Bone, which is the colloquium.
Yes.
And in the meantime, let's just have a little bit of music just to get us from point A.
And welcome to Russell Walder. Thank you very much for calling in today, and it's fantastic to be able to speak to you. But first, I'm going to introduce.
My pleasure.
Oh, beautiful! I'm going to introduce you to the listeners because they probably don't know a great deal about you. I was first introduced to your music by coincidence when I attended a meditation teacher training course at the Gawler Foundation in Australia, 2017, and this is an organisation that helps people overcome cancer, and it was a week's meditation course, a great opportunity to unwind and meditate, walk in nature and listen to music. And I purchased your CD from the shop whilst at the foundation, which was entitled Music for a Shift in Consciousness, and that was from the author, The Biology of Life, Dr. Bruce Lipton. Is that right?
Yeah, he's one of my great life friends, and he and his label Soundstrue asked me to do the music based on the book, The Biology of Belief, like what was the kind of the vibration of that, and so that was a really fun project.
I thought that was really interesting because on the write-up it actually said that we listen with our ears, but actually we listen with our entire body, and every cell in our body reacts to the music, obviously, that we hear. And this beautiful music, which was composed by yourself, a Grammy nominee. I listen to your music every day when I meditate or I'm painting or just chilling out. So,
thank you so much.
Oh, it was just amazing. And then when you agreed to allow us to use some of your music as part of our Numinous Factor, the podcast, we just were, just so grateful. Thank you.
Yeah.
So just as the intro, as a musician myself, but obviously not at the level that you are, Russell, I understand I understand the inherent joy and emotion playing music that it brings to people, and also the effect it has on the mind and the emotion. And I just where we use a segment which is called Wisdom Calls When the Wall Falls. That's our opening podcast, our opening music. Sorry. It just fitted with everything that we believe in, and that conscious level and the connection to spirit and metaphysical. So we were just, I've said it again, just so grateful that we had the opportunity to use your music.
Absolutely.
So, a fabulous hello and welcome.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure.
Oh, so I have some questions to ask you.
Yeah.
So looking at your resume, Russell, I see you've got a great understanding of how the conscious mind can be connected through music. Can you tell me more about this and what you've learned and understood through the experience of composing this type of music?
Well, I mean, the first thing that you even just sort of said in that kind of intro kind of brought up a thought about, just like how our consciousness or our selves listen. It instantly made me think that, like, for instance, when I'm talking to anybody, whether it's, however it is, if I'm physically there or on the phone or whatever, I've found that, through the years or decades, that it's rare in a way that I'm communicating with people where I'm actually almost listening to their words. So I'm not really talking to people. I mean, although I'm talking, I usually use words. I'm not actually listening to people's words when I'm talking to them. I'm listening to almost like their deep vibratory sense, and I'm sort of thinking, how do they feel, or what are they vibrating or resonating, and do the words match? Kind of what they're saying, because for the most part, it's more an exception than the rule.
Yeah.
That, what's happening deep inside of a person, kind of at any given time, and then what they're saying really kind of match up. So a lot of times I'll be speaking back to them more about what's kind of resonating more than what people are saying.
Yeah.
And so in a way, that kind of practice leads me down kind of the roads of a composer or an artist in terms of, what is it that I'm listening to, or what is it that I'm really trying to communicate back?
Yeah.
So I'm usually going for something, sort of as deeply as I can possibly get to, because, in a sense, I mean, even in a physics or a scientific sense, everything in this world, whether it's, it's human, whether it's consciousness, whether it's animal, whether it's in nature, whatever it is, there's a resonant frequency that is giving off, and then if you're kind of entangled with it, are you listening to it? What's the response to it?
Yeah.
So even like this last album, Music for a Shift, I mean, it was all done on a level of what is it that I want people to be feeling or reacting to when, if they just think they're listening to the music, like, oh, this guy made this music, what really would be happening is what is their unconscious reacting to?
Yeah.
Is really what I'm most kind of what I'm involved in, or what I'm, the focus. And the older I get, the more I do music, the more I get such a deep sense of what, how is resonance transferred between, like, people or music or art or whatever, because that's the thing that stays in someone's deep consciousness about music, or why they would want to play it every single day, because it's touching, like, the deep frequency of something that says, I'm loved, or I'm understood, or there's a point at which I can awaken to something deeper than I'm afraid of.
Yeah.
Because even, everything, I mean, fear, I mean, even look at the states, or like the whole political system, or, it's so insane, but, it's really a case of, what is the frequency that people are attuned to. But, I really have such a deep belief that in the presence of something called, sort of the deepest truth, even that has a resonant frequency. Everyone will respond to it.
Yeah. And there are different frequencies, aren't there, for emotions like love, anger. There's different frequencies. There's a scientific background to that as well, that they've actually measured it, but I can't remember exactly what the frequency levels are. I think it's something like 14/2 for love, and that kind of thing.
That's right, yeah, that's right. I mean, although I don't really work with it quite like that, I mean, all those things have been sort of, measured and analyzed, and I mean, but yeah, it really is the thing that kind of gets me up and keeps me working on it, just, day after day or year after year, of, like, creating something that has a resonant frequency of something that feels deeply authentic in a world where most things are deeply fake. It's, that's the river I always want to swim in, because, like, it's one of those things where when you know it or see it or hear it, for sure it's the real thing. I mean, the truth can never be fake. As cliche as that sounds, you just know it when you feel it. So every piece of music I want to, be just in the sort of the deep ocean of what that feels like. And it just, it's just so enriching for me to
Russell,
sort of stay in that path.
Brody here. I wanted to ask you more of a sound question. There clearly are sounds which have a resonance. That's why Tibetan bowls and bells and so on have a particular resonance that works particularly in spirituality. What happens with harmonics?
That is, I mean, obviously you know what you're listening to, because that would be a really, really great question, because in a sense what you're asking is almost, what is the sound source of everything I'm doing? And that is such a bullseye question, because everything I do is, in a way, I'm trying to take any kind of a sound and almost rip it apart and kind of release its resonant harmonic frequency. And so my process, and what I think what I want my music to do is sound like, in a sense, only I could have made it, in the sense that like, for instance, like a technical example of this, of the sort of the resonant harmonic, and why I find this so kind of the sort of the treasure behind every single sound I've ever made, is that, for instance, if you took let's say you took a violin note, like at middle C, like, which would be like, 500 or 650 or something hertz, and you played that sound at like 25 hertz, super low, I mean, so low that it was just rumbling and rumbling, and you'd never almost hear the sound. There's this incredible phenomenon that something around 2K, or even 8 or 10K, you're going to take that sound and it's going to hear like this sort of this angelic sound of the highest particle, because it's being played so slow. That sound only emerges when the original sound is kind of completely separated from its original source, because the wave shape changes. So I would say that there's something